at Twende Shule, the program that offer an online teaching in various subjects. So we continue with our history subject. And in the previous lesson, we discussed the third topic about changes in political, social, and economic policies in Africa after independence. And we discussed about the problem facing Africa after the independence. So we discussed the problem which we started experiencing soon after the independence, but also most of those problems are still persisting until today. Therefore, today we are going to address those problems, or to see the solution to the problem faced by the post-independent African states. That the post-independent African state faced with the various problems. Now, which are the solution, or how the Africans have tried to address the problem? And if we still have a problem, what will be the suggestion to those problems? What will be the mitigation measures to those problems? What will be the panacea to those problems? So today we are going to discuss about the solution to the problem facing the post-independent African states. As I said in the previous lesson, that there are problems which face the independent African states. Then we have tried to address the problem. At least we have reduced the size or the magnitude of the problem. But the problem still exists. And there are other problems which exist until today as it is. So here we are going to examine the solution which have applied by the Africans to address the problem. And if the problem still exists, we need to propose another solution for the problem to be solved. And remember, solving of this African problem will not be an overnight process. That within a single day, we may solve all African problems, then we will remain with no problem. That will be impossible. So we need to propose the solution on how to solve the problem, or how the Africans have tried to solve their problem. First, to create more employment opportunities in order to address the problem of mass poverty. As we have seen before, that Africans are faced with the problem of mass poverty. That most of the Africans are living below $1 per day. So if they are living below $1 per day, so even their purchasing power is too low. And sometimes the main problem to this mass poverty, or the main reason to this mass poverty, because they have nothing to do. And if they have nothing to do, they are doing it with their very little gain. So in order to address the problem of mass poverty in Africa, we must create more employment opportunities. At least people will be able to afford those basic needs, including food, shelter, and clothes. If people be employed, even their purchasing power will increase. And here, when we are speaking about employment opportunity, we are speaking about those formal employment opportunity, informal employment opportunity, or non-formal employment opportunities. We need to promote even those people who are engaging in petty business, including machingas, mama lishe, or mama ntilie, and other people. So we must promote them so that they will be able to employ themselves. And those educated also, we must train them that life is not only about being employed by a certain company or by the government. So sometimes you may employ yourself, you engage in a certain entrepreneurial activities to earn something for your life, at least to have something to feed your family. So as the government and all stakeholders, we must create more employment opportunities in order to address the problem of mass poverty. Another solution is to create a democratic government which adhere to the principles of good governance. So first is to create the democratic government. And always democratic government is created by democratic, free and fair election. If there is no free and fair election, we will never create a democratic government. Free and fair election must be free from corruption, must be free from any threats from the military police, free from any threats from those cohesive apparatus, that people be able to choose their leader according to their own will, not being pushed by a certain circumstance. That because all people are rational, they can judge that this man will help us to address our problem. So if we create a democratic government through free and fair election, not only free and fair election, but also it must be regular, free and fair election. You know, sometimes there are people who are saying we may conduct an election in a definite time, that those who are in power, they may decide that after 15 years we are going to conduct election. Then they decide maybe after 20 years we are going to conduct election. So there must be free and fair, but it must be regular. So through regular, free and fair election, we create the democratic government. And this democratic government, as I said before, we cannot elect an hyena to take care of our goats, and when our goats are consumed, we wonder why. So after creating this democratic government, we will automatically adhere to the principles of good governance. And here, when we are speaking about the good governance, we are speaking about decision making and decision implementation. How the decision within the state are made, how the decision within the state are implemented. Do they adhere to the principles? And we have almost 80 principles of good governance. Maybe for the sake of you students, let me just list down those principles. We have participation. We have equity and inclusion. We have transparency. We have consensus oriented. We have accountability. We have responsiveness. We have rule of law. So these are among of the principles of good governance, that the decision making and decision implementation must adhere to the principle of participation, must adhere to the principle of equity and inclusion, must adhere to the principle of transparency, must adhere to the principle of consensus oriented, must adhere to the principle of accountability, principle of responsiveness, and principle of rule of law. So when we create a democratic government that will adhere to this principle, we are likely to grow economically, politically, and socially. Because through this principle, even corruption problem will be addressed. If we have transparency in our government spending and everything that